You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, where we share topics that will inspire business growth and help you stay ahead of advances in technology before they become mainstream. This episode is sponsored by Ingram Micro Xvantage, the game-changing platform that will transform your business potential and reshape how customers see you. Our next guest on B2B Tech Talk is Corey Mock, Senior Manager of Incident Command Group here at Ingram Micro. Corey has 15 years of experience in law enforcement and investigations and 20 years in digital forensics, e-discovery, and incident response, working for a Big Four, as well as state government and companies in the automotive, manufacturing, and IT distribution sectors. When he is not solving cybercrime, Corey loves hiking and spending time with his family and two dogs. Hi, Corey. Welcome to B2B Tech Talk. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, Nina. Doing fine.
Great. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the show because we've got some announcements to make. But before we get started, I wanted to learn a little bit more about you and your history working in InfoSec. I know you were in the public sector for a little bit. How does that differ than working at Ingram Micro?
It's working at Ingram Micro. It's a little bit harder to get information. Working in the public sector, you have access to more data, and you can do things like search warrants and subpoenas very easily when you're working a cyber incident to get the information that you need, which is not so working in the private sector.
Interesting. So is that because of privacy laws?
It's how the legal system works. And one of the other things that's different too is in the public sector, you have a lot of coordination between different government agencies and groups sharing information. Whereas when you work in the private sector, companies want to protect their information. They don't want to necessarily share with their business partners or their competitors some of these types of information.
That's interesting. So, since you began your work in information security and specifically in incident response, how's the threat changed or how's it evolved?
Well, Nina, cyber threats are ever evolving due to changes in technology. I mean, that's something that's always going to change, especially with AI now in the mix. Threat actors are experimenting with ChatGPT to write malicious code and craft highly convincing and difficult to detect social engineering and phishing emails. And in the future, attackers will be looking at AI to find and carry out attacks in a much more automated fashion. Not only the threats evolved, but the cyber criminals using them have become much more sophisticated as well, and their funding has changed. Many cyber criminals have banded together to leverage their skills and technology in an effort to improve their effectiveness. Some criminal groups are an arm of an already established criminal organization, and they receive funding and support for their efforts beyond the proceeds of their crime. We now see state-supported actors who are part of large groups of cyber criminals that are well-funded and supported. Using this support mechanism, new threats such as ransomware as a service have emerged, and the organized support allows for these criminals to now focus on things like trying to get around biometrics and MFA. That being said, though, day to day, we are still seeing attackers using the same basic and simpler methods like sending out emails and trying to get people to click on malicious links or open attachments. They can send out a large number of emails and are guaranteed that at least a small percentage of people are going to click on them, potentially allowing them to gain a foothold on someone's computer and eventually on the network. Attackers are also more focused than ever on exploiting open or known vulnerabilities related to out-of-date software on operating systems or devices like firewalls. Finally, there continues to be a consistent volume increase that we're seeing in the number of warning emails about hacker activity. These get sent out by government agencies like CISA, DHS, and the FBI.
Sure. Well, when I was looking at the it's a heat map to show where attacks are coming from. It looks like a ball of yarn. It's hard to tell where the majority of them are coming from. Are they coming from overseas mainly? Are they within our country? Where are you seeing them coming from?
Well, it's really global, and it's hard to tell sometimes because they do look like they're coming from within the country. But because hackers can jump from system to system, and there's a lot of system anonymizers out there, um, they can jump into a system and look like they're coming from the US when really they're coming from Russia or China or somewhere else.
You talked about organization. These are not people with hoodies on and zip up hoodies on in a dark room. These are organized businesses.
Correct. It really has become a business. Some of them are state sponsored, and then some of them are businesses that are actually criminal enterprises.
I've heard the word hacktivism used a lot lately. Is that something that you saw in your previous role, where people with political agendas were creating havoc on networks?
Yes, I have actually personally seen that. A good example of that was some of the whaling that was going on um, in over near Japan. There were activists that were attacking companies that they believed either supported whaling or were near the whaling effort.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's fascinating to watch, and I'm sure it is going to AI, especially, and breaching and learning how to breach those platforms is going to be fascinating to watch as we enter in the U.S. another political season. So, Corey, how do you make sure your ecosystem is secure to prevent backdoor attacks?
So backdoor attacks rely on the attacker being able to sidestep or get around normal authentication or access methods to gain unauthorized access to a system or a network. They do this by looking for open or known vulnerabilities in the operating system, a firewall, a software application, or a web application, and then they exploit those to gain access. You can reduce the risk of a backdoor attack by making sure your ecosystem does not have open and unpatched vulnerabilities, especially those that are critical and high rated and that have been known and have been published for a while. You can reduce the risk of a backdoor attack by making sure your ecosystem does not have open or unpatched vulnerabilities, especially those that are critical or high rated that are known and have been published for a while, giving the attacker possible backdoor access. A vulnerability management program is a good systematic approach for reporting on open and known vulnerabilities and then having a process to patch those. The other part of this is detection so that attackers are not able to set up shop in your network if they do find an opening. At Ingram Micro, we have a 24/7 SOC with dedicated and experienced analysts that monitor and respond to anomalous activity. Best in class enterprise security application tools also play a big part in the prevention and detection of these types of attacks.
Well, you know what? It makes sense what you just said, because lately I've heard of a lot of nonprofits being attacked, and they're coming through backdoor open doors from other networks. And because they're nonprofits, typically they may not have access to the technology to fully secure their environment. So, question for you now. I'm so excited about the series that Ingram Micro is producing on cybersecurity in conjunction with October being Cybersecurity Month. Tell me a little bit about yours.
The video is about how Ingram Micro's information security team combats cyber incidents after they occur using the incident command group, the incident command system, and a security incident response plan. While people are familiar with cybersecurity incidents, this may be a side of cybersecurity that people are unaware of and have not been educated about before.
How important is training, awareness, training, and education to all associates from all companies as part of this? How important of a role does that play?
Cybersecurity awareness programs are extremely important. Statistics are still showing year after year that humans are still the weak link in the security chain and causing a high percentage of security incidents to occur at companies by clicking on links or opening emails that they shouldn't.
Very good. So training is important, ensuring you've got the right tools in place to make sure that your systems are secure. This has all been fantastic, Corey. I can't wait for um, uh, your training to come out on incident response. I can't wait to see it, and I can't thank you enough for being my guest today on B2B Tech Talk.
Thanks, Nina. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. You've been listening to Ingram Micro's B2B Tech Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode and you want to continue the conversation online, use hashtag B2B Tech Talk.